I took a few away before I actually left the house. This first one was published in a online literary zine called Apocrypha and Abstraction. My mother is a wolf. My mother is a wolf. She is with me at the campsite. There is a sign that specifically says, "Do not keep food accessible to wild animals." She sits at the table and has tea with me. She is sitting on her haunches. My mother is crying. She says there are things she never taught me. How to sew from a pattern, how to manage my accounts, how to plan for a week's worth of shopping. Her paw is on my hand. It is warm from scrambling over the sun-kissed rock, from a blood that has become different from the way my blood runs, which is almost reptilian by comparison. I have no feeling anymore, Mother, I say, no regrets. I am serving the cinnamon tea. I am serving it in delicate white china. In the sun, my mother is beautiful. In the sun, the blue of her eyes, like the sky, penetrate my defenses. I have not raised you this way, to take the hardships of your life this way, she says. I never told you it would be always the same. There are things you must do now to become who you must become. The smoke of the fire curls up in the air. I wonder if my mother will return that evening with the other wolves, to threaten me for my meager fare, a bird shot in mid-flight, a rabbit caught in a snare. I wonder if she will return for me. She had come to see me during the day at other times, and not for tea, and not for any reason. I have felt the pressure of the others hovering about the trees. So far, it has not resulted in anything, only a mild abrasion on the cheek when we kissed, an unintentional scraping, drawing a faint line of blood. I am disappointing her, I feel, and yet I cannot move on. My old life is behind me in ruins. I mourn it as for an ancient city, burning. My beginning has no map. My mother is not the woman in the yellow dress, cooking dinner for my father and my brother and my sister. All histories have melted away, and those old regrets live on the top of the mountain. And yet, except for a few tears, my mother runs in packs at night. I know she protects me, for in the morning there is a drop of blood in the corner of her mouth, or in the web of her paws that she does not explain, but wipes away on a napkin. And yet I continue to straighten the napkins and check the egg timer for steeping. This is one more flash piece I'll read to you. It was published in a zine called State of Imagination, which has since, unfortunately, gotten bottomed up, but it's a good zine. This is called Numbskull's Flower and the Well-Meaning Poet Society. Once upon a time, there lived in a Numbskull village an unusual little girl named Numbskull Flower. Now this particular flower was unlike all the other girls in the village in that she was such a simple thing she believed everything everybody told her. You see, even though this was a Numbskull village, almost everyone knew you could never trust anyone 100% of the time. They knew this because one night, when they were partying, some of them saw shadows on a cave wall, and they believed the shadows were actually giant people. But it didn't go much further than that, only to say that some people become bigger when they walk before the fire, ergo, you could not trust people, because you could not trust them to remain the same size 100% of the time. But Flower was an anomaly, and as she grew, she continued to say things like, a rose is a rose is a rose, thereby demonstrating her belief in her teacher's faulty interpretation that a thing is what it is. Flower also said things like, Jesus loves me, without a hint of doubt. And this is because other people she respected and admired told her this was true. And besides, Jesus' statue stayed the same Sunday after Sunday, and therefore Jesus could be trusted to be who he said he was. some boys got together and decided to have a little fun. They decided to stick it to this flower babe and give her some love poems. Yeah, that'll get her going, they said, slapping each other's butts. Well, actually, they decided to have the girls write the poems. They requested that the girls phrase the lines in such a way to evoke a mad passion. They said, put just enough in there about flower to make her believe she is the recipient, okay? So, you know, do girls smile? Put some stuff in there about smiles. Do they have hearts? Oh yeah, put that in there too. Also bunnies, girls love bunnies. Then one of the smartest of the girls, which a numbskull isn't saying much, spoke up and said, so what happens when she believes those poems are meant just for her? What happens when she falls in love with you? What will you say then? The smartest of the boys said, well, let's just say we gave these poems to all the girls and even to some of the guys. That way it'll look like we don't give them just to her. It'll look like everyone receives these poems, you know? Why is it that numbskulls say, you know, so much? Hence, the Well-Meaning Poets Society was born, and they used air quotes too and referring to themselves, and it made them feel funny, and they bought beer and bashed their heads against boulders. I don't know if that's right. So Flower took all of the poems the postman gave her, and she ate them up. She gobbled them down whole. She really did. They were like sugar candy, like hot lava rocks that blew her socks off, that steamed her little hot tamales. Her parents didn't need heat all winter, and the snow melted from around the base of the house so that the bulbs shot up early. And when spring came, Flower couldn't contain herself anymore. She had to go out and find her own true love. She went searching everywhere, but she only saw mirrors on all the numbskull faces. What had become of her love? But she had not written the poems, had she? So why did she only see herself? That's when one mirror told her she was mistaken to think she was special. When that mirror spoke, it sounded like it could have been the one who wrote the poems, because he made reference to the unspecialness of a billion black bunnies. And so, inevitably it seems, her heart broke. She ran through the village and up the hill to her tiny house. Her parents held her as she cried and cried. They had waited for this moment. They knew it was coming, and now they thought they could relax a little and help teach her by hard experience what all the other children seemed to know. She would likely become something less like a hothouse flower and more like a dandelion or a weed. But that which is called a flower by any other name would still be just as trusting, and they were not to change her. In fact, she grew only more hothouse gorgeous as the bitterness poured down and off and around her and flooded the town, fertilizing crops, drowning fields, providing new homes for water birds and their babies, and bringing people from villages all around to swim in their beautiful blue lakes and marvel in the wonders of a village no longer called Numbskull, but instead Miroslava, which means peace and glory.